Welcome to Big Bears Podcast. Thanks to Cash Converters. This is your link between your rugby league club, the Perth Bears, and the community, and you can continue to provide all of that feedback in Bite Back, and we'll be asking those questions to those within the club and within the community that you want to hear from. And if you've also got a podcast suggestion, you can drop that in as well, because we'll be looking to talk to as many people as possible. I'm Oliver Peterson, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Perth Bears Board Member Christina Matthews. Chris, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, and it's nice to be part of such an exciting initiative.
It is an exciting initiative. What attracted you towards the Perth Bears?
Look, I lived in Sydney for 25 years, and I lived in a suburb called Chatswood, which is North Sydney territory. And so when I first moved to Sydney, North Sydney Bears were my team, and were until, the end of the 90s when they disappeared off the face of the top-line calendar. I also, one of my neighbours was a Perth Bears player. The trainer at my gym was Gary Larson. So I had all these nice connections with North Sydney Bears, and I'd followed the story and so forth. So, when it started to become a reality, I was watching it keenly like everybody else. So getting the call up was really good. And having been at the forefront of the invention of BBL, when I was working for Cricket New South Wales, was a really exciting period. So I had an interest in, let's see how this works in another sport and how you can start completely from scratch effectively. So, I found it really interesting from a sports administration professional point of view as well.
Christina, so you come to the board, obviously having been a cricketer, having obviously been the CEO of WA Cricket, formerly the WACA. Tell us a bit about the Christina Matthews story.
Well, Ollie, I grew up in Melbourne, so I've lived in Melbourne, Sydney and WA. Was very fortunate as a young girl to find a cricket club in my local area. Started playing when I was 12, and fortunately, a lot of hard work. I got to play for Australia for 11 years, been in sports administration pretty much my whole working life. And, my last full-time job, which was CEO of WA Cricket, was a great experience for me and allows me to come into the things I'm doing now with good experience across business and sport.
Obviously, playing cricket for Australia, is that the career highlight, Christina, or is the best highlight still to come?
Look, I think it's a really good question because, I've never wanted to be someone who the thing you did ages ago is the best thing you ever did. Mm-hmm. You want to keep evolving. So, my time playing cricket for Australia was very special, but it was also an opportunity for me to learn and grow and move on to other things. It's quite when I was playing, I didn't win a lot of awards or anything like that. I was a decent player, but not what I'd call one of the legends of the game. So last year when I got inducted into the Cricket Australia Hall of Fame, I remember getting the call and they told me, and I said, what for? I was like, is that because administrator? Is it playing? But it was for playing. But, it's using those things and learning and then realising now at the stage of life I'm at that the recognition for those things often comes way after you've been involved in it.
That's an incredible recognition, though. To be put into the Australian Cricketers Hall of Fame, I mean, that you must treasure that in your baggy green.
Yeah, I don't often ring my family and say, do you want to come to an event? But I said, look, I'm getting inducted into the Australian Cricketer Hall of Fame. Would you like to come? And they were all, I suppose what surprised me is how proud they were of me. Where I was surprised, they're going, oh, this took forever. We thought you'd get it ages ago. And I'm going, oh, you've got a weird idea about how good I was. It's unbelievable. And I'm in the top 10 women. There's only been 10 women, 11 now. They've just announced the latest one.
Yeah.
So 100 years of international women's cricket, from when it was first recognised. To be in the top 10 of women have been recognised in the Hall of Fame is something I would never have understood or believed would happen.
It's brilliant. And now as well, with all the other hats that you wear, you're still very much involved in cricket.
Yeah, I mean, when I finished working in cricket, And even as recently as last week, I said to someone I was going to Scorchers for, oh, good, you're still involved or you still follow them. And I'm like, well, I was a cricketer long before I was a CEO. Yeah, I mean, it's part of who you are.
Yeah.
When you play something at that level, it kind of never leaves you. And you watch, even though you're not closely involved with the teams or anything, you watch clearly and you feel like you're part of what's going on.
And then with the Players Association.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important to me. I've always been a player's advocate when I was playing. That got me into a bit of trouble. You know, you're supposed to be seen and not heard as a player. But I was always pressing for more and trying to help get better conditions for players. So to be part of that now, I really enjoy.
So you'll take that into the board as a player's advocate for the Perth Bears?
Yeah. But as I said, it's about supporting and accountability. So it's always two sides of the coin. You know, you're asking for something, you've got to do your part to give back as well.
So you've got experience, obviously, with the startup, as you say, with Big Bash, international cricketer. You've run the WACA, which became WA Cricket, of course, for a long time, Christina. So this must have been very attractive for you to bring all of that expertise into a board position with the Perth Bears.
Yeah, look, I'm on a number of boards now, and one of the things I find has helped me enormously is having been a CEO and bringing CEO experience to the board table. So in this context, having been a CEO in sport onto a sports board, I felt I would have something to offer, because often, you know, board members are corporate people, and you sometimes need to take a sports approach to it, not a corporate approach. And other times you need to merge the two, and other times you need to lift yourself and sort of look at, well, what would happen in a corporate environment. So, yeah, I was pretty sure I'd bring something positive to the table.
Are you enjoying the challenge so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whirlwind, and I think it's hard not to sort of want to jump in and help, you know, in a real sense. But you can't. You've got to let the staff do it. You've got to develop staff. You know, you're there if they need some advice, or I've played a role in assisting in recruiting, but it's not really. But when players come across to have a look at Perth, I've helped in giving them a tour of the WACA, talking about what it's like moving from the East Coast to Perth.
Yes.
Talk about how when people come here, they just never leave, and how good it is. And I'm batting 1,000 at the moment, so I'm pretty happy with that.
I like that, because you and I are very similar in that regard, being born in Sydney and moving to Perth and never leaving. And, of course, it is that merger, as you just said there, giving people a tour of the WACA, because that's where the Bears headquarters is going to be for the next couple of years.
Well, the first thing Nick Meaney said when he turned up, and he was with his two little kids and his wife, and they come from Lismore.
Yep.
And he looked and he goes, oh, who owns that water facility? I said, well, it's part of this complex. And you just kind of see him go, really?
Yeah.
And you can see his two little kids go,
yeah,
you know, how good's that? And now with Waterbank site, now got the goals up, the grass, it's looking really terrific. And, you know, I think it's something, players who want to come here are players who want to be pure footballers, not in that bubble of everything that goes with football. So I think, you know, we've seen it with the Sydney Swans, dare I use an AFL example, where people move to the Sydney Swans or the Brisbane Lions to get some breathing space to just be a footballer.
The game is obviously expanding at a rapid pace. It's so exciting, and you know that better than anybody, being at the forefront, having run WA cricket. It is a different landscape in Western Australia, isn't it? It is a different environment to operate a sporting franchise, a professional sporting franchise in WA. Yeah,
it is different, and it's I think as a state, we've led the country in fan engagement initiatives. Part of that is how Big Bash evolved and the success of the Scorchers and everything that goes with that off the field. Part of it is because we're so far away from everyone, you're kind of battling on your own sometimes. You're not part of the head office and all that sort of stuff. So we had there's Perth Bears board meetings on at the moment, and we had dinner last night, and we were talking about the importance of leading the way in rugby league about fan engagement and activations during the game, music, fireworks, things that people used to seeing in sport here, with the Wildcats,
Yes.
West Coast Fever, Perth Scorchers. It's about the entertainment, but you can't lose sight of, if you haven't got a competitive team, all that doesn't mean much. So it's this really unique building those things together.
And I think you touch on there with the Big Bash and obviously the success of both the men's and the women's Scorchers, which you're at the helm of for a long time at WA Cricket. There seems to have been an organic growth in the success amongst the fan engagement and interaction. You look at the crowds you get at the stadium, for example, for Big Bash fixtures for the men. They're unlike anything else around Australia. There's a way that Perth has really gravitated towards and supported their own.
Yeah, that's right. And from a business point of view, it's also learning that you don't grow your revenue if you don't invest in the things that make it attractive for people to be involved. So I know that's what happened at WA Cricket. We really invested in building our membership team so that we could get as much benefit as we could from membership. And then, embracing those who aren't members for, the rest of the ground and engaging. So different initiatives for different groups of people. But your membership is actually your lifeblood. So you've got to make sure you're looking after them, you're engaging with them at games, you're engaging with them out of games and so forth and so forth.
What did you learn from your experience at WA Cricket? You had a lot of success on the field, Christina. You obviously had a pretty successful team around you as well in your administration, but you're never backward in coming forward.
No, you've got to stand up for what you know is right. But I think one of the things that's not often spoken about in success and our success is it's working with the grassroots people. We did a lot of work over a number of years to bring the cricket community along and to make them feel a part of what we were doing. And I know we're working hard to do the same thing as the Bears, is to honour the history of rugby league in this state and bring them along in the journey and help them to understand that the Perth Bears and what it becomes is very much a part of what they've done over history. So the end result, if we use the Scorchers example, is sellout crowds at finals and revenue generation and so forth, comes at the back of a lot of hard work building relationships in the cricket community that I know the Perth Bears are doing with the rugby league community. And, we've got a bit of a good start at the Perth Bears because we've got the history of the Western Reds, the history of WA NRL, as well as the history of the North Sydney Bears. So we've got some really good stakes in the ground that can anchor us, and we've got to remember that it's not just the shiny thing you've got to look after. You've got to look after the whole sport.
Yeah, and we're already seeing that with the close relationship between, as you said, NRL WA and the Perth Bears, because ultimately, Christina, you would see the pipeline of success of the Perth Bears, and we're talking 10 years, 20 years down the track, is homegrown talent that grow up playing rugby league that want to represent the Perth Bears.
Well, I mean, again, if we use the Scorchers as an example, their success comes on the back of a really strong homegrown product of players. So a pipeline of players that have been part of the cricket system here and grow up wanting to play for the Perth Scorchers. It's not an easy thing for someone from WA to go, well, I'm going to shift clubs. They want to make where they are their home and their career. And that's an advantage the Perth Bears have. That if we get it right through the community, we are going to build our own pipeline of players that is then supplemented from those overseas and interstate, but is not reliant on. And that's a really important vision to keep in mind.
And those building blocks at the moment, you used the Nick Meaney example before and his kids seeing the water park. Yeah. How important is that, Christina, to really have the players that you sign and really everybody that you sign in the administration, regardless of what they do, to buy into the culture, to buy into Perth in particular?
Look, if I'm being honest, it's not hard to buy into Perth once you're here. We all know it's a beautiful place to live. It's actually getting people to make the move. And I think there's not many people who've made the move over. In fact, I don't think there's anyone who hasn't gone, gee, it's a beautiful place. Gee, isn't it? It's easy to get around. Oh, gee, isn't this good? And so forth. So it's almost like opening the door to go, come and have a look. Hotel California, you'll never leave.
Well, you won't, will you? I mean, it has sort of been Australia's best kept secret for a little while, but too many people are finding out about it.
Well, and I think too, WA and Perth has grown up. It has all the benefits of a big city without the claustrophobia of a big city. I was riding on the weekend and we were all talking about there's not many cities in Australia now that you can ride on roads on weekends safely. The quality of our roads is good, but also, there's not the density in other cities. I mean, when I lived in Sydney, we used to ride, and it was like roller derby. You just didn't know what was going to happen next.
Are you riding for leisure? Are you riding for fitness? Have you got a challenge that you're participating in, Christina?
Yeah, well, I'm on the Youth Focus Board, so I've got a 2-day ride. There's the 4.5-day annual Ride for Youth to raise money for youth mental health, and on the board of Youth Focus. So they have a 2-day ride that's part of that, which I'm on, and I'm training to do that.
All right, so you're not doing the entire Albany to Perth stretch?
I've done that enough.
That must be quite rewarding, though, as well, by being involved in youth mental health. There's a lot of challenges for young boys and girls. Yeah,
it is rewarding. I mean, it's nice to do something practical like raising money for a ride and so forth. And look, the thing about youth mental health, but mental health generally, there's a lot of anxiety in our world and a lot of pressure on people that wasn't there when I was a kid. There's different language now. We used to always say my mother was a worrier.
Yeah.
We now realise she was anxiety-ridden and so forth. So, it's good to be able to raise awareness, but more importantly, give guidance to where you can go to get help. I mean, that's a really important part of the ride. There's school visits along the way from Albany to Perth. The youth focus counsellors are at that school visit so they can be follow-up and so forth. So, it's really rewarding to be part of it.
What you just mentioned there, do you think there are more pressures, Christina, on younger people today than there were through even your time of administration at WA Cricket or as a player yourself, or do you think that we just are able to open up a little bit more?
I do think there's more pressure, and strangely, we also open up a bit more. But as you mature, you tend to open up, not necessarily straight away. So I think, it's really difficult. I know my own brother said to me about his kids because I felt he was putting a lot of pressure on them. And I said to him, look, I did it right. I said, I didn't finish high school, and talk to me. He goes, you can't do that anymore. I said, well, I reckon you can if you let your kids find their way, but you're teaching them what's important in life from a values perspective. So, your world doesn't stop when your year 12 finishes and your scores are A or B.
Yeah.
There's very few people I know who went to university and ended up working in the degree they got. So you're on this earth for a very long time and there are many opportunities. And I think we have to learn that people evolve at different times, success comes at different times. And the most important thing is we're teaching people about the values and behaviours that will see them be successful ultimately.
And you ground that in a high-performance environment as well, Christina, because ultimately you're judged by the wins or the losses or your success or your failures. With that bubble now, with that scrutiny, and from your experience in cricket, do you still approach that from your point of view, whether you've won or you lost, or those first conversations you have with your players?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing I've learned in my time in high performance is that people need boundaries. People need to know what's acceptable and what's not. And that gives them their guiding and their shining light. And you need to be having hard conversations when hard conversations are needed, i.e., that's not appropriate, this is what we expect, and so forth and so forth. And you then, anybody can have a year of success, win a premiership or win a competition. What I was always after was a dynasty, so repeated success over time. And that only comes with people understanding what's expected of them, the boundaries they work within, the values and behaviour that represent that, whether they're at training, whether they're in the street with their families, and when they're on the field. So, anybody who thinks success is all about talent really doesn't understand it.
And when you step back now and reflect on a couple of years out of WA cricket, do you think you achieved that? Do you think there was a dynasty there, Christina, that you left?
Yeah. I don't think that can be denied. What was really interesting for me is once we got Justin Langer as a coach, we won a tournament within 18 months. And that started the pattern, and, history tells us we won a lot of shields, one-day titles, Big Bash titles. But it's I've lost my train of thought now.
That dynasty.
The dynasty is about doing it repeatedly. And we won, and they continue to win Big Bash, having a few problems in Shield at the moment, but that's a bit of a changeover. We won 14 titles in 10 years, or 16 titles, whatever it was, across men's and women's. And that's what you want to achieve. You don't want to win one and rest on your laurels for another few years. We see that often. You want repeatable behaviours, and that's what a high performance is, repeatable behaviours.
Some sections of the membership may not have liked some of your tenure though, Christina, and you sit back and reflect on that now. Did you have to do what you needed to do to achieve that success and that dynasty?
Yeah, I think we could all look back and go, oh, probably wasn't the best way to do that. But at the end of the day, the majority of the members were really happy. We achieved success. I speak a lot about, the greatest probably gift I got when I left was a signed jersey frame from the players that said, thanks for having our backs. If players believe the administration backs them, you'll get so much more out of them than if you're going head-to-head all the time.
And is that a building block for the Bears, that
Absolutely.
The administration and the players have each other's backs?
Oh, look, I hear the same thing, whether it's from Ben Morton or Mal Meninga, about how important character is to what we're building at the Bears, and how important values and behaviour are as to what we do, and doing things the right way. And I think the way we've gone about our recruitment kind of demonstrates that, because we took a lot of heat from the East Coast press about how we hadn't announced a big player and how hopeless we were going to be and whatever. But Mel and his team had a plan about the sort of players they wanted. We weren't just going to pay big money for big players. They had to want to come here for the right reasons at the right price. And so we steadily sort of announced players, with people now going, gee, they're building a good roster, aren't they? No fuss and furor, but just doing things our way with our processes in mind.
I think that we've been fortunate enough to talk to Mal on the podcast so far, and we no doubt will again down the track, and Ian Millwood and David Sharp and Anthony DeSegli and so many guests like yourself, Christina, and there's just a really interesting insight about building that culture and what the Bear is. You must have some fascinating discussions behind closed doors that we can't necessarily share in the Big Bears podcast environment, but that must be quite inspiring to create this from scratch.
Yeah, I remember saying, Mel Meninga would have known me from Adam. So I think, and I asked a lot of questions when we were having meetings and we were talking about high performance. And so I was quite involved in those conversations. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, Mel, this is the most exciting bit, how we build a strong high performance culture and department. And he looked at me and sort of, you could tell he goes, right, you know what you're talking about. And we have good conversations now. And I've really been impressed with him and David Sharp have done together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you had a conversation with me, might have been in the last year or so, about your approach towards being a CEO and backing in, for example, your coach, Mal Meninga, and the decisions that he would make, or Adam Voges or Justin Langer. Yeah. That's obviously important from a CEO, now board member's point of view, that you're backing in your administration, your CEO, your coach, your head of football, because you want them to have the belief that you have in them that they want to have in you.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not blindly backing in. It's backing in, but also they know that I'm going to tell them if there's something that I think they could do better. So I always say to people, it's running a sporting team is a bit like having your own children, that you're teaching them all the time and then you're letting them make mistakes and learn from it. And not surprising, a lot of people ask me about Cameron Bancroft. And, the important thing when something as happened with Cam was so high profile, so catastrophic to him, is you don't turn your back on them. You embrace them. You let them know that they're accountable for what they did, but we will help them get better and we will help them come back, as you would with your own children.
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of the most important things to understand.
Well, Bancroft bounced back and let his bat do the talking, Christina, and probably unfairly maybe was maligned from the Australian cricket team when he was particularly knocking on the door again 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think Cam's a very authentic person, and I think his authenticity at times didn't sit well with some of the team, and that caused some angst. But he, being this person he was, he allowed me to interview him last week in a fundraiser for Youth Focus, and talked about the mental health challenges of being a professional athlete, but also how he himself got through that period.
Yeah, and fascinating. And hopefully there's many more runs in Cameron Bancroft. Christina, this has been a fascinating conversation. Obviously, you're involved with the Perth Bears, Youth Focus, Tourism WA.
Yeah.
You enjoying your board positions?
Yeah, I am. And I'm president of the Australian Cricketers Association,
That's right.
which is a really nice connection for me, staying involved in the game. But, yeah, and look, being part of Tourism WA is a real privilege, and there's so many good things happening in WA. We've just come off an incredibly strong period of sort of sports and entertainment, Sail GP, the cycling, the test match pre-Christmas, so many events, Perth Festival at the moment. It's a really happening city, and that's one of the things people find out. Now, there's a Sydney Festival and whatever. I lived in Sydney for 25 years, never went to a Sydney Festival event because it's so hard to get around.
Yeah.
In Perth, I'm all over Fringe and Perth Festival because it's easy.
Yeah. And using places like the East Perth Power Station.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that. Well, you are selling Perth and WA to the world, and for players and administrators who might think about making the move here to the Bears, I bet you're going to relish these challenges over the next few months, and we're only about a year away until kick-off.
Oh, it's going to go so quickly. You just think about, when you had your children and they're really little, and you think, oh, they're going to be like that forever, and then next thing you know, they're at school. And that's what it's going to be like for the Perth Bears. We're, treading along a path thinking, oh, how long have we got? And then, bang, it'll be our first game and we'll be looking at each other going, how great's this?
Yeah, it'll be brilliant. Christina, it's good to have you on the Big Bears podcast, and go well in all of your board positions and everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
That is Christina Matthews joining us on Big Bears podcast. Thanks to Cash Converters. I'm Ollie Peterson. We'll catch you next time.